Gerard Butler, born on November 13, 1969, stormed Hollywood with 300, but health scares and addiction battles derailed him. At 55 years old, his $40 million fortune cannot mask the scars of lost years. Ian McKellen, born on May 25, 1939, became immortal as Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, yet loneliness shadows him. Now 86 years old, his $60 million bring little comfort to an empty home. Larry Wilcox, born on August 8, 1947, rose to fame in chips, but legal troubles and fading stardom cost him dearly. Now 78 years old, his $1.5 million can't buy back his youth. Sean Connery, born on August 25, 1930, defined James Bond, but strained family ties and illness darkened his later years. He died on October 31, 2020, from pneumonia and heart failure, leaving behind a $350 million estate. Liam Neeson, born on June 7, 1952, brought gravitas to Taken, yet the death of his wife shattered his world. At 73 years old, his $145 million feel weightless against such grief. Sean Bean, born on April 17, 1959, became a legend in The Lord of the Rings, but 5 divorces and scandals scarred him. Now 66 years old, his $20 million fortune is overshadowed by regrets. Jason Patric, born on June 17, 1966, stunned in Speed 2, but addiction and obscurity consumed his career. At 59 years old, his $3 million net worth is a ghost of what might have been. Michael Madsen, born on September 25, 1957, thrilled in Reservoir Dogs, yet addiction and financial ruin left him destitute. Now 68 years old, his $2 million fortune barely keeps the lights on. George Clooney, born on May 6, 1961, became Hollywood royalty in Ocean's 11, yet the cost of fame and endless scrutiny weigh heavily. At 64 years old, his $500 million can't shield him from doubt. Jason Statham, born on July 26, 1967, electrified audiences in The Transporter, but overwork and personal loss hollowed him out. Now 58 years old, his $120 million wealth hides quiet suffering. Joaquin Phoenix, born on October 28, 1974, shook the world with Joker, yet the death of his brother Rivers still defines him. At 50 years old, his $60 million fortune feels tainted by tragedy. Arnold Schwarzenegger, born on July 30, 1947, conquered Hollywood and politics, yet scandal and divorce toppled his perfect image. Now 78 years old, his $450 million empire feels tainted by regret. Mark Dacascos, born on February 26, 1964, amazed fans in Only the Strong, but obscurity and financial woes dimmed his star. At 61 years old, his $2 million fortune cannot erase the pain of a stalled career. Jean Reno, born on July 30, 1948, captivated audiences in Lyon. The professional, but personal loss and fading fame left him isolated. Now 77 years old, his $70 million feel like cold comfort. Daniel Craig, born on March 2, 1968, became immortal as James Bond, yet beneath the suave exterior was a man crushed by loneliness and alcoholism. Now 57 years old, his $160 million fortune feels hollow, haunted by broken marriages and fading fame. Michael Douglas, born on September 25, 1944, shone in Wall Street, but cancer, addiction, and family scandals tore him apart. At 80 years old, with $350 million, he walks a fragile line between legacy and regret. Christian Bale, born on January 30, 1974, gave all for The Dark Knight, but self-destruction and rage cost him friends and peace. Now 51 years old, his $120 million empire feels like penance for years of turmoil. Mel Gibson, born on January 3, 1956, ruled Hollywood with Braveheart, yet scandals and rage exiled him. Now 69 years old, his $425 million wealth cannot erase the shame etched into his soul. Armand Assante, born on October 4, 1949, brought intensity to Gotti, but bankruptcy and obscurity devoured him. Now 75 years old, with only $2 million left, he reflects on a career that slipped through his fingers. Adrian Paul, born on May 29, 1959, embodied Highlander, but fame faded, and failed ventures left scars. Now 66 years old, his $500,000 net worth barely shields him from regret's cold grip. Don Wilson, born on September 10, 1954, was a martial arts legend on screen, yet off it, lawsuits and bad deals broke him. Now 70 years old, with $1 million, he faces life's final rounds bruised but defiant. Kevin Costner, born on January 18, 1955, triumphed in Dances with Wolves, but divorces and financial battles bled him dry. Now 70 years old, with $250 million, he wonders if his empire was ever worth the cost. Pierce Brosnan, born on May 16, 1953, enchanted millions as James Bond, but grief from losing his wife and daughter to cancer still haunts him. Now 72 years old, his $200 million wealth feels like a gilded cage for a broken heart. Clint Eastwood, born on May 31, 1930, defined rugged masculinity in Dirty Harry, yet 8 children and endless scandals tore his private life apart. At 95 years old, his $375 million legacy carries the weight of solitude. Anthony Hopkins, born on December 31, 1937, stunned the world as Hannibal Lecter, but alcoholism and loneliness devoured his youth. Now 87 years old, with $160 million, he finds peace in art but battles regret in silence. Michael Ironside, born on February 12, 1950, became iconic in Total Recall, but cancer and obscurity left scars. Now 75 years old, his $8 million fortune feels fragile against a lifetime of pain. Michael Biehn, born on July 31, 1956, starred in The Terminator, but addiction and poor choices shattered his career. At 69 years old, his $4 million wealth is a pale shadow of what could have been. Angelina Jolie, born on June 4, 1975, mesmerized in Girl, Interrupted, but divorce, illness, and strained family ties marked her life. Now 50 years old, her $120 million cannot heal wounds deeper than fame. Lance Henriksen, born on May 5, 1940, chilled audiences in Aliens, yet poverty and broken relationships haunted him for decades. Now 85 years old, his $5 million fortune came too late for lost years. Chuck Norris, born on March 10, 1940, became a martial arts icon, but tragedies with family and betrayal in business left him scarred. At 85 years old, with $70 million, he fights loneliness more than enemies. Arnold Schwarzenegger, born on July 30, 1947, conquered Hollywood and politics, yet scandal and divorce toppled his perfect image. Now 78 years old, his $450 million empire feels tainted by regret. Mark Dacascos, born on February 26, 1964, amazed fans in Only the Strong, but obscurity and financial woes dimmed his star. At 61 years old, his $2 million fortune cannot erase the pain of a stalled career. Jean Reno, born on July 30, 1948, captivated audiences in Lyon. The professional, but personal loss and fading fame left him isolated. Now 77 years old, his $70 million feel like cold comfort. Adrian Paul, born on May 29, 1959, embodied Highlander, but fame faded, and failed ventures left scars. Now 66 years old, his $500,000 net worth barely shields him from regret's cold grip. Steve Austin, born on December 18, 1964, dominated wrestling as Stone Cold, yet injuries and failed marriages left him broken inside. Now 60 years old, his $30 million wealth feels empty in the silence of his Texas ranch. Johnny Depp, born June 9, 1963, enchanted in Pirates of the Caribbean, then fell to lawsuits, addiction, and public humiliation. At 62, his $150 million fortune stands beside a heart heavy with betrayal. Ryan O'Neal, born April 20, 1941, died December 8, 2023, was the golden boy in Love Story. Cancer and heartbreak claimed him at 82. His net worth of $20 million outlived him, but regrets seemed to linger longer than fame.